In a future where disease, pollution, and corporate greed have made getting a delicious meal more difficult than ever, the residents of Night City must prepare their food without eggs, dairy, or meat. This is Cyberpunk Kitchen. We will recreate meals from the action role-playing game Cyberpunk 2077 using ingredients that are readily available. So let's get started with today's recipe and see what a cyberpunk future might taste like. The in-game reference for today's recipe can be found during the quest, They Won't Go When I Go. The quest begins when V receives a phone call from Rachel Kasich. After a brief conversation with Rachel, V proceeds to Joshua Stevens' dressing room at Fourth Wall Studios.
We're late. Stevenson's been asking for you all day. He's in his dressing room. Go talk to him.
Instead of speaking to Joshua, check out the craft services table in front of you. On the table appears a consumable item simply named Tajine. Tajine is a savory stew originating from the Maghreb region of North Africa. It's cooked in a special vessel that's also called a tajine. I suspect Tajine's presence in Cyberpunk 2077 is a homage to author George Alec Effinger's series of stories featuring a low-level fixer/solo named Marid Audran. These stories are set in a cyberpunk version of the Middle East. Marid grew up in Algeria before relocating to a district called the Boudain inside an unnamed city. Marid is often found eating meals at restaurants serving North African cuisine to remind him of his homeland. With this simple recipe, you too can sample a taste of what Marid was longing for. As far as I can tell, tajine is any number of stews cooked in a unique ceramic dish that is also called a tajine. The conical lid of a tajine is designed to allow steam to condense and drip back into the stew. This recipe will be Cyberpunk Kitchen compliant in that it contains no meat, dairy, or eggs. Plus, I couldn't find any products like Beyond Lamb or Impossible Mutton to take the place of traditional meats used in the stew. Where I live is very diverse and has a large population of people of Middle Eastern and Arabic descent, so I was able to easily buy a tajine locally. I actually had my choice of 3 different sizes. Because not everyone has access to merchants selling esoteric pointy-tipped crockery, I will demonstrate this recipe using some more traditional cookware too. The recipe has 2 long lead items, potatoes and eggplants. The potatoes and yam should be partially cooked ahead of time. This will ensure the potatoes and yam are cooked all the way through when the stew is finished. Clean and chunk the potatoes and yam. Toss the potatoes and yam chunks in a tablespoon of olive oil. If you're using an air fryer, cook for 25 minutes. If you're using a conventional oven, cover a cookie sheet in parchment paper, spread the chunks evenly, and bake for 25 minutes at 425 degrees. Set the partially cooked potatoes and yam aside to cool when completed. The eggplants will need to be purged with salt to remove excess moisture. Slice the eggplants into 1/2 inch thick planks. Arrange them on a plate and coat with table salt. Flip and coat the other side. Allow to sit for at least a half hour. You'll be able to see the liquid being drawn out of the eggplant by the salt. Wash off the salt and pat dry with a paper towel. and dice the planks into bite-sized pieces. Dice the carrots. Dice the onion. Crush the garlic. Garlic powder and paste may be used as a substitute. Cut up the dried apricot. If using fresh parsley, wash it and chop it. If using dried, measure out a 1/4 cup. Measure out the rest of the spices. Open a can of tomatoes and prepare a quart of vegetable broth. I'm not using anything fancy, just 4 cups of water and 4 bouillon cubes. Aside from the distinct Tajine cooking vessel, the other hallmark of Tajine is a spice mix called harissa. To make harissa, chop up about 10 to 12 dried chilies and place in a bowl. Set them aside. Measure out the coriander seeds, cumin seeds, caraway seeds, and peppercorns into another bowl. And finally, in a third bowl, measure out the garlic powder, salt, parsley, and oregano. A garage is a strange place for a cooking video, but for this step you really want to be outdoors. It's winter here, so the garage is a compromise. Heat a dry skillet over a camp stove or burner and add the chopped chilies. Stir them constantly to ensure they are evenly toasted. When the chilies start to smoke, remove them from the heat and put them back in their bowl. The smoke is like pepper spray and will make your eyes water, your nose run, and your throat burn. That's why we're out in the garage instead of inside the house. Return the skillet to the heat and add the contents of the bowl of seeds. Stirring constantly, roast the seeds until they start to brown or smoke. Remove the seeds from the heat and return them to their bowl. When the chilies and seeds have cooled to the touch, grind them into a powder. My spice grinder is a simple coffee mill that I picked up secondhand at the Salvation Army. A food processor would also do the trick. Or you can go old school and use a mortar and pestle. But this will take a long time. Combine the ground ingredients with the powdered ingredients and store them in an airtight container. Now you've made harissa. Whatever cooking vessel you end up using, start by preheating it. I was a little nervous using something made of clay on the stovetop. I was afraid it would crack, spilling stew everywhere. This didn't happen. Add a tablespoon of olive oil, and when it starts to smoke, the vessel is hot. Add the onions and carrots and saute for 5 minutes, stirring regularly with a spoon. Add the garlic, potatoes, and eggplant. Then gently stir in the spices and harissa. Allow to cook for 5 to 7 minutes, stirring gently but regularly. Add the tomatoes, apricots, and broth. As you can see, the Tajine bowl doesn't really hold that much, a little less than half of the ingredients. If you purchase a Tajine, you may want to get a larger model, or reduce the size of the recipe accordingly. Bring the mixture to a boil, reduce the heat to a simmer, and cover. Cook for 25 minutes, stirring occasionally. The Tajine's lid will get hot, not to mention the hot steam coming from the vent, so don't use your fingers to lift it. If you're using the optional chickpeas, add them now and cook for another 5 minutes. The last step is to stir in the parsley and lemon juice. And now you have Tajine stew. Serve over rice, basmati if you have it, or couscous. The nutrition for this recipe will vary depending on the exact ingredients used. For instance, how many calories are in a medium onion anyway? But here's my best guess. The cost for this recipe breaks down as follows. This doesn't include buying a Tajine. So now it's time to check with the Primo meter. Tajine gets a preem because it's delicious, nutritious, and aside from the Harissa Spice mix, it's easy to make. Cut and peel some veggies, mix up some broth, open a can of tomatoes, throw it all in a pot, boil for half an hour, that's it. The recipe's great left over too. Making the Harissa Spice mix may take a little effort, but keep in mind, one batch of Harissa makes 4 batches of Tajine. If you try this recipe, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching.